going to swap over to my other computer in a sec, but I would like to introduce Jessica King. Jess is one of the founders of Abilio, which she will tell you a little bit about during her presentation. She is a accessibility activist, and today is going to talk to us about her brain squish.
I hope so. We'll find out, won't we? Hi, as Sarah said, I'm Jessica and I'm from Abilio. When the slide thing works, I promise, it's true.
The best laid plans.
Hey, there we go. Okay. So, at Abilio, we're all about making life accessible. We want everyone to experience all of the good things that life has to offer. And I've just broken it again. That's great. Nope. Scroll. Okay. Yep. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So I love tech. I love accessible tech. And I love marrying the two to create great experiences for people with disability. And I'm lucky enough to have witnessed the positive changes that technology has brought to the world. I've been a direct beneficiary of it. So I have a dodgy heart, means I get really tired and I have limited energy. So being able to access lecture notes and academic databases online played a huge part in my ability to complete coursework and ultimately finish my uni degrees. Because everything was online, I didn't have to find energy I didn't have to get to uni, walk to the library, research, return home, and then write a 10,000 word essay. Now, if you hang around me enough, you'll hear me say over and over again that disability is diverse. You can't tell if someone is disabled just by looking at them. And the way that disability is experienced varies from person to person, even if they have the same disability. And this diversity is really important to remember when you start thinking about digital accessibility. Digital accessibility encompasses more than just ensuring screen readers or captions for images and video, although that is super important and you should be doing it already. There are other barriers to digital accessibility that you might not have considered. And one of those is going to be my focus tonight, and that's cognitive fatigue. So as a bit of background, 18 months ago, I got an infection in my brain, which resulted in brain damage, several months in hospital, and I was surrounded by machines and beautiful hospital gowns. I had to relearn how to do everything. It was just like being a toddler. While I learned how to walk and talk, I discovered... Is it broken? No, I think we're good. Okay. Okay, right. So rehash, got really sick, brain got squashed. Had to learn how to work and talk, but I discovered that I now had really bad cognitive fatigue. And that's completely changed everything from how I plan day-to-day activities to how I work. Now, slowly, I've been working on improving my concentration. So this time last year, I could work for 3 minutes, and that's it, and then I had to stop. Today, I can work for 25 minutes at a time, and I only need a 10-minute break between work sessions. It was really frustrating at first, but I realised that with good planning, I could manage my fatigue and still be productive. I just had to approach things differently. But cognitive fatigue is not just related to brain injury or trauma. If you hang around with people with chronic illness enough, you'll hear them referring to it as brain fog. And it can include symptoms like poor memory, poor concentration, the inability to process or understand basic information. The symptoms experienced on any given day or even time of day are not predictable. At its worst, every single task is enormous. It takes much, much longer to complete anything if you manage to complete it at all. So a recent experience I had with an online form is a great example of how this works. Poor accessibility, bad user experience, and bad design combined to make a nightmare for me. So not long ago, my landlord decided it was time to renovate, and I found myself looking for a place to live. And I knew this was going to be a stressful thing, but what I found to be more stressful than attending endless open houses was actually the application process itself. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with this, the majority of real estate agents force prospective tenants to apply using online forms. The idea is that it simplifies and streamlines the application process for agents and for tenants. Basically, it's one form for everything: payslips, ID, DNA. And this sounds ideal. I did not discover that. These forms didn't allow me to manage my fatigue. I wasn't sure what information they require, so I couldn't plan out my time. Added to this, there's a lot of pressure because if you don't get that form in by 9 a.m. the next day, the likelihood is that you won't get that house. So the first problem I encountered was just no clear information. At various points while filling out the form, I needed to stop what I was doing, go away, dig through some paperwork to find something like my dog's microchip number, return, and refocus. I had no option to skip and then fill all this extra stuff in at the end. Littered throughout the form were fields that required dates, like date of birth or length of time at current house. And the way that you input these dates represented no other calendar I have ever encountered, ever. I couldn't type in a date. I had to select a decade. Then a year in that decade. Then a month of that year. And then a day in that month. Each step took 1 minute to perform. That's 4 minutes per date. It used so much browser memory that it almost crashed at each step. And I had to provide around 10 different dates. That's 40 minutes of precious energy spent on dates. And if I made a mistake, I had to start from scratch. I worked through this, becoming more and more tired. When my brain gets tired, I become agitated, less able to focus, and very stressed. As I click submit, the system recognized that the second person I'd put on the application, my husband, had completed a form of his own. It asked if I'd like to include his application with mine before I sent it to the agent. I clicked yes. So it collated the forms and sent them to the real estate agent, right? Nope. I was returned to the exact same form that I had just completed and instructed to fill it out once again, this time using my husband's information. I vomited, literally. It was just too much for my brain. The cognitive overload was so bad that I couldn't complete the form. I was unable to do anything for the rest of the day, like stand straight or walk properly. So my husband took over for me, and in total the process took 3 hours. And I can't help but think, if he hadn't have been there, if I didn't have somebody to help me, I would have been excluded from accessing the housing market. Now, how is that fair? How can your ability to have a roof over your head depend on your capacity to fill in a form online? So in the end, I did get a house through an application that was sent to me as a PDF that I filled out on an iPad with an Apple Pencil. It was as easy as the other form should have been. And this is why it's important to think about accessibility as a function of usability and user experience. If you're a product manager and your user journeys aren't covering this before a single line of code is written or a single design has been drawn, then you need to change that. Poor accessibility has real-world consequences. It can remove the ability of a person to complete basic tasks, having to rely on a third party when they shouldn't have to. It's unnecessary and entirely preventable. Good accessibility, on the other hand, might be life-changing, providing independence and opening up new opportunities. Creating an accessible solution has positive effects that reach beyond the disabled community. By taking accessibility and usability into account right from the start, you can have positive outcomes across your business and customer base. So, join me in my crusade. Give the same priority to ensuring that your customers have an accessible experience as much as they have a positive user experience, and help me make the world a little bit more accessible. Thank you.